Hey everyone, welcome to Unique Ways with Thomas Gerard, an audio podcast. Got a really awesome guest today. She reads, Great design is where user needs and business goals meet. She seeks to understand both to design user-centered, inclusive, and accessible products and services, specializing in enterprise software, and has spent the last 11 plus years helping clients in different industries deliver successful projects to their audience, all the way from strategy to final product. Please join me in welcoming Stephanie Walter. Welcome, Stephanie.
Hello, hello. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. You ready for your 20 questions?
Yay.
Great. Here we go. Number one, tell me a little bit more about yourself. What do you do?
So yeah, as you just read in my bio, I'm UX researcher. I'm mostly specialized in enterprise UX. So on a daily basis, those days, I mostly help my client build better product for their own internal users. So I work for a consulting company called Meltem. And my current client is a European investment bank, and I'm redesigning a 18 years old web app that is used by a lot of people in the bank. And yeah, we are trying to build it in the most user-centric way possible. So big
Awesome.
task.
Awesome. Just a note for our audience, Stephanie and I don't know each other, but I was researching possible guests and I found her and knew I had to have her on. It's been a few months of planning to get here, so I'm super excited to be recording this. Question two, what's a key piece of knowledge that makes you different?
I think it would be enterprise UX because a lot of people I have on LinkedIn and a lot of designers, they will mostly work either in B2C software or maybe customer software. And I don't find there's that many people who are actively speaking, I would say, about enterprise UX. Like, what is it like to work on products that will be used by internal users? So often it's like this kind of very boring product with a lot of table, a lot of data, a lot of complexity, because eventually when you design something, it may reflect the complexity of the business, and most of the enterprise businesses are super complex. So yeah, I think the big difference with me is mostly working in this kind of software is something I actually enjoy, which apparently is weird. Last time I spoke at a podcast, the guest was like, "Yeah, I hate it. I admire you for working on such things because I think it's very, very horrible." So yeah, I'm weird.
That's so funny. You know, when I think of enterprise software, I think back to the early web days when we used terms like intranet and extranet. And
Yeah, it's
yeah,
exactly that.
yeah.
Intranet, stock management, like the software I'm using is a project management for an investment bank where you can follow a whole project over 10 years if you want. So all of that cool, not fun stuff with a lot of data because of course there's a lot of complexity. Yeah.
Very cool. Number three, why this of all things? Why do you do what you do?
So kind of the enterprise thing, maybe it's linked because I've been working in tech, and tech in Luxembourg is very business oriented. Like a lot of clients I had since I moved into Luxembourg were banks, insurances, or I worked for company that was doing truck transportation, and they had to work on this super complicated software where you would basically like create the schedule for a truck, like where does it go, where does it take some merchandise, where does it leave some merchandise. So a lot of optimization so that the truck don't go on a road without having anything on it or something like that. So I think it's linked to that, also that the fact that yeah, organically a lot of products and a lot of things I started working on in Luxembourg were already into that area. But also I kind of really like a challenge and information architecture challenge. So I kind of enjoy working on super big tables, 7 levels of nested forms and all of the stuff, because at the beginning it's super scary because you're like, oh my God, how the hell am I going to design that? It doesn't make any sense. And then you start kind of talking to people, understanding the business, talking to the users, and you kind of gather these kind of small pieces of a puzzle until it finally makes sense, and you're like, yeah, obviously, so this is how I need to present that and that. So I think, yeah, it's kind of the way my brain works. Like, I like puzzles, I like finding patterns into things. So naturally these kind of environments are some things that I enjoy. Yeah.
Awesome. I'm super glad to hear about your European connections. We had Rogier van der Heed on recently, who's a C-suite designer based in Europe, and also Joel Hladicek, who has a similar kind of level to a C-suite. Yeah, those were great guests. If you're interested in this episode, check those out.
Great.
Number 4, what does your future look like?
I would say, what does anyone's future look like these days? Because it's a mess, to be honest. We still are into pandemic. I see that the numbers are getting higher again in Luxembourg, France, Europe. There's so many layoffs in tech. I've seen a lot of people, especially UX designer, getting laid off, because usually when company they go into kind of a restricted or freeze mode, the first thing that goes is design, because yeah, still in low level maturity company, people don't understand the value of design. So I would say it's very hard to see what my future looks like. So I kind of enjoy what I'm doing. So I think as long as I can keep doing it with the current client, I would like to stay there and keep on improving their tools. But yeah, you never know. At some point, if we hit another recession or something shitty that is going on next year, it's like, yeah, we spent the last 3 years saying, yeah, this was the worst year of the pandemic. It can't get worse than that. Well, actually, it could. So, yeah, it's a little bit tricky at the moment. Just trying to keep doing what I like is kind of what I hope doing in the future.
That makes sense. Number 5, I say, is unique to this podcast. The question is, let's talk about location. How does the notion of place play into what you do?
A place as in like a city, a country, or like an office, or
Yeah, it can be. I think we've had, different responses. Some people talk about their geographic location, but some people talk about how pandemic has kind of trapped them there in an apartment and in that kind of place. So it really depends.
so for me, Luxembourg is quite interesting because it's a very small country between France, Germany, and Belgium. So you have to understand that a lot of people work in Luxembourg but don't live in Luxembourg
Mm.
because there's not enough space. The price of housing is over the top at the moment. I just bought and I'm just like, yeah, that was hard. So it's quite interesting because so you have a lot of people who just commute to the country and then live outside of it. But at the same time, you also have a lot of people who come from all around the world who can't do that, because once you have a working visa, you have to live in the country. You can't say, oh, I'm gonna work in Luxembourg but live in France with my working visa. I don't think that works. So it's quite interesting because we had a lot of people all around the world. So when you talk to someone, you have no idea what this person's language will be. So most of the time you default to English because it's kind of the easiest until you figure it out. So it's quite an interesting place because we have 3 national languages: French, German, Luxembourgish. But then the government, they translate everything, also health related, for instance, COVID. Everything was translated in Portuguese, in Spanish. I think there was Italian, there was English also. So it's kind of an interesting place in the sense that it's very multicultural. Like, we have amazing restaurants because there's so many people from all around the world that come here, and then a lot of them have also open restaurants. So it's very, very cool. Like, if you want to eat specific things, it's quite easy to find. So yeah, it's quite an interesting place. Also, it's the capital. So it's super small, but it's technically the capital of the country, which means we get to have great concerts. Like Rammstein came 3 years ago, something like that. So it's very, very weird because it's the place where they do the concert is very small, but they still have some super big names. So yeah, it's very specific, I think.
Nice. I'm recording this podcast from Vancouver, Canada, and yeah, the majority of people here are from somewhere else. You know, I'm from
Yeah.
Vancouver, and I very, very rarely meet anyone who's from Vancouver. It's very diverse here. Number 6, if you had to start from scratch, what advice would you give your former younger self?
Something random, listen to the people who say you should stop doing that or that don't know how to sell yourself because, yeah, they were all wrong. I like my first talk ever was in English, and I had someone very horrible in the chat saying I shouldn't not be allowed to do any more conference talk in English because my English was so bad that it was killing Shakespeare. Well, 2 years later, my friend, fuck you, basically. So yeah, don't listen to those people.
Nice. Number 7, what's a day in your life like?
Depends what day, because I'm still working remotely 3 days a week. I'm going to the office one day, and on Fridays, I don't work for a client. So I do all my other cool stuff. So when I'm working remotely, it's mostly like coffee, logging in, double checking with colleagues if there's emergency. I now have a bigger flat than before, so I'm doing a lot of more walking back and forth in the flat, which is actually a good idea. So then when I go to the office, despite the weather being very shitty, I don't want to be stuck in public transportation, so I go by bike. So it's very fun, like to ride the bike half an hour to go to work, because kind of, yeah, you arrive, you're not I think you're less stressed than if you had to take public transportation, where you're all kind of mushed with people. So most of the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I'm going on Thursday, is like that. And yeah, in the office is more like face-to-face communication with people, especially since we are only there once a week at the moment. So we do more informal meeting around the coffee machine, stuff like that. And then on Fridays, it's the day where I can do all the other cool stuff. So I'm also teaching at a different university. I have a blog. I'm doing workshops, conferences, and I'm also starting to print some stickers. So Fridays is mostly the day where I do all of those other stuff. So preparing new conference talks, preparing some slides for a teaching class, or just like drawing cool things on Illustrator and then printing them to make some stickers. So yeah, depends on the day.
Okay, that makes sense. Number 8, lifelong learning is a popular topic. How do you stay up to date?
Those days I have a lot of newsletters and RSS feeds. So I follow a lot of people on Twitter and LinkedIn, but the issue is the algorithm is getting very meh. So it's pushing a lot of fun stuff, but not very informative when it comes to my work. So yeah, those days I prefer subscribing to very specific newsletters. So I subscribe to a lot of them, like UX newsletter, but also typography, news in tech. I'm subscribed to a weird one that's basically telling me all the new cool stuff in tech and science, which is sometimes scary and sometimes not. So it's kind of cool. So yeah, mostly newsletters, but also RSS feed, just and following a few people who I know they will share interesting resources. I attend conferences. With the pandemic, the cool thing is that we got a lot of more online meetups. So I think a lot of people still are doing those, which is kind of very great. So that too, like attending online meetups and talking to people on different topics that are related, which is always a good thing, because then you kind of have a sounding board for ideas and stuff like that. So yeah, building a community, RSS feed, and newsletters.
Nice. Number 9, what tools do you use? Are you both digital and analog?
So we use Sketch for design, Axure for prototyping, and then yeah, we use Jira, which is something I hate, but that's for work. But then yeah, I kind of also Robots, because it's kind of a online giant post-it walls, but I'm actually very analog. I still take paper notes during interviews, so I have my pen and paper. You can't see my office, but there's a lot of, it's basically decorated with all the cool stuff my friend make, like stickers and small little postcards and stuff like that. So I'm very into kind of craft and inspiration. So even though I'm doing a lot of digital art, I'm still very much like, yeah, let's print those stuff because I want to be able to grab it and touch it and put it on the wall or something like that. So yeah, both.
Nice. Okay, we're halfway. Number 10. How do you deal with work-life balance?
Poorly, but it gets better. At the beginning, it was really, really hard when we were all forced to stay at home. It was a little bit complicated, but now I'm getting a little bit better. I'm trying to during lunch. So here it's winter, so it's a little bit more complex, but trying to go for a walk for lunch or at the end of the day so that I don't spend my whole day on a chair sitting in front of a computer, things like that. Also, the fact that I have the Fridays for my side projects means I have the rest of the weekend to do more fun stuff, like going for bike rides, going for walks, going to the swimming pool also. And so, yeah, I'm trying to get better at that.
Great. Number 11. If you weren't doing what you do now, what would you be doing?
Absolutely no idea.
Mm.
Yeah, it's, I don't know, really my brain loves information architecture, but I'm a very creative person. So I don't know, maybe something around interior design. I would love that, I think. It's like, yeah, let me decorate your house, but at the same time, let me think about the most efficient house I could decorate for you. Like, where do we need to put the stuff so that it's efficient and things like that. So, yeah, maybe interior design. I have no idea what it looks like. Maybe I have all the wrong ideas. It's annoying, but yeah, that could be fun, I think.
I'm similar to you. I like the organization of design and creating hierarchy and things like that. When it comes to decoration, I get this kind of negative feeling. I'm not sure why. Maybe I'm not creative enough. Number 12. What would you not like to do with your career?
Like with my career, or
Mhm.
with another job that I would not like to do.
Yeah, with your career, what would you not like to do?
Honestly, I would not like to do to work in a place where marketing decides everything and you have to use all the deceptive patterns in the book to kind of trick people into buying. So I
Mm,
would not like to work for Booking,
mm,
basically. No, honestly, I think it could be super interesting to work for Booking if you like to do some data-oriented user experience, like a lot of A/B testing and all of that. But yeah, at the same time, I would have a hard time like using psychology and biases and things like that to trick people into buying stuff they might not need. So yeah, that I think I would not. Also, I would not like to work in NFT stuff.
mm.
All of that, I'm really not a big fan. So again, anything with NFT would be like a hard pass for me as well.
That makes sense. I think, yeah, that's probably the most common kind of answer to this question is something that doesn't align with your values is very difficult to
Yeah.
do. Number 13, what's your favorite word, quote, or sentence?
Haha. I actually printed stickers with that. It's a zero fucks given, which is a nice and polite way to say zero fuck given.
Nice.
But yeah.
Um, how about a least favorite?
This one is easy. I hate the an interface is like a joke. If you need to explain it, it's not a good one.
Yeah.
Because yeah, there's a lot of good jokes that you need to explain to people. Like if I make a joke on quantum physics and the person in front of me knows nothing about quantum physics, it doesn't mean it's a bad joke. It just means that this person doesn't have the business. I would say, like in interface terms, they don't have the background to understand it. And for me, like I could show you most of my interfaces, And I think people would not understand them, which is perfectly fine because they're not in the target audience. They don't have the business knowledge to understand them. Like I worked on a crane monitoring system, and I'm quite sure if you don't, like, if you show it to someone, the person would be like, what the hell is going on here? But the people who used it found it quite useful and is easy to use because they are in the business. So this whole thing about an interface being a joke, and if you have to explain it, it's not a good interface, for me, it doesn't make sense. So I hate when people print it on t-shirts and walls and stuff like that.
15, if you had to pick one word to describe yourself, what would you choose?
Learning. Yeah, I love learning. And also this is, I think, why I'm into UX research and things like that, because you learn a lot about the users and the business. And this is what keeps me motivated, like, okay, did I learn interesting things today? Issue with that is then you end up in rabbit holes. Like at the moment, I'm trying to decide if I want to buy one set of cutting plotter or the other one. So it's a machine that is basically cutting stuff for you, like a sticker, vinyl, things like that. And there's two big brands on the market. And I think I've spent the last 2 weeks in rabbit holes watching YouTube video to understand the difference between the two and doing so many comparisons.
That's
But
funny.
yeah.
What keeps you up at night?
My neighbors. I get noisy neighbors. I need to deal with that.
What's the dream you're chasing?
We were supposed to go to Japan in 2020, but then the pandemic hit and we were not able. So I dream of one day going there and doing the whole trip that we wanted to do from Tokyo to Osaka, to visit a little bit, also to discover the food and things like that. So yay, I hope we get to go.
Final stretch, number 18. What inspires you?
Usually a lot of people who are doing amazing stuff. So this is why I still like Instagram, because I was able to create my feed so that every time I open the app, I see something really nice, very, very cool or very inspiring. So like just people playing around with stuff, different craft, different material, or just different techniques, things like that. Just like, pushing the boundaries can also be something as kind of, some people do that with code, like some very cool SVG demo or like very amazing stuff you can do in CSS, even if you will never do that in production, but you don't care because it's just about making something fun and cool. So yeah, people having fun with different materials, technologies, always very, very inspiring.
Great. Number 19, any advice you'd like to share?
Good question. This is a tough one because there's so many advice. So it would depend on the topic. Like life advice is one that would be a little bit strange, but like try to always have a bottle of water with you because you don't know how your day is gonna go. And maybe all of a sudden you end up in an emergency room because life. So it's better to have kind of a bottle of water with you in these cases. So yeah, very pragmatic.
Yeah. And number 20, how can our listeners follow you and keep up with you? Where should we look?
So I have a website called stephaniewalter.design. I'm mostly on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Mastodon. I don't know how you pronounce that in English. But yeah, Twitter, LinkedIn, Mastodon, and my website is usually the places where I hang around. I'm doing this kind of weekly newsletter that I post on the website, which is basically a review of all the links that I shared during the week so that people can kind of, if they are afraid to do something that I posted. So sometimes people will DM me like, oh, you shared this link 2 weeks ago. I can't find it anymore. It's like, yeah, it's on the website. Don't worry. So yeah, mostly those places.
Great. Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining, Stephanie. I found you on Google when I was researching possible guests, and I was like, I've got to have her on the show. And so we booked, and it's been such a long time coming, and I'm so happy that it's finally resolving. So thank you so much for being on.
Thanks for having me, and have a nice day then.
Thanks.